Welcome to the Headley Highlight Show's Headley Headspaces. And this headspace is called the King of Kubala. I cannot get this bloody word out. Delegitimizing his claims for reparations. Why don't we just do that again, Denise? Hello and good afternoon and welcome to the Headley Headspace. And this headspace is called the King of Kubala and delegitimizing his claim for reparations. Thank you so much, Dee. Get it right. Right, so before I jump straight into the headspace, which is called the King of Kubala, delegitimizing his claim for reparations, I first would like to say thank you so much for your returning listening ear. And if it's the first time your ear is here, I'm so happy to become acquainted with you and your cochlea. In addition to that, I would like to say thank you to everybody who's been listening, liking, sharing, retweeting, boosting, hyping, and engaging with my content. I now have 2,060 subscribers, and I'm aiming to get to 2,100 subscribers. With your assistance, of course, do press the notification bell and select all so you could receive all of my content, which would be fabulous for both of us darlings. In addition to that, you can make a donation. Yes, I'm very partial to free wings and chips and a Miranda. I did have free wings and chips last night, plus a side breast, which was rather tasty. And yeah, you could also potentially buy me a bit of Bitcoin where you can, if you wanted to, you can do this if you wanted at my website, which is denisehedley.com. Or you could go to my YouTube, which is also called denisehedley.com. Right, so now that I've done that, let's jump straight into this headspace, which is called the King of Kubala and delegitimizing his claims for reparations. So if you've not heard anything about the King of Kubala, let me share with you what the details are. So a man by the name of Kofi Aging Offa has named himself King Athenti, and he leads a group of people called the Kingdom of Kubala. It's actually 3 people, and it includes his partner Jean Gasho, who is 43, and her name is Queen Nandi, and Cara Taylor, 21, and the newspapers have referred to Cara as a handmaiden, which is a subservient media idea to create a particular type of view in your mind. Her name is Asant. They are camped in a woodland, this is in Scotland, near Jedburgh in the Scottish borders. Now, the landowner is private, and he got, presumably it's a he, I don't know that to be the case, got a court order to evict them, and sheriff's officers went to remove them. After the eviction, they moved a very short distance onto council-owned land and have since then have been served with another eviction order by the Scottish Borders Council. They were evicted, as I said, from private land, and essentially the basis of them moving to the new location is that they claim that they have an ancestral right to the land because the land was stolen from their ancestors 400 years ago and they are reclaiming it. The authorities don't believe they have any title, any legal title to the land. They were unsuccessful for whatever reason in the eviction proceedings. I don't know if they contested it, but like I said, they basically moved a few yards down the road. The police and the authorities have been called because the Asant, the lady who is part of the commune, because it's just 3 people living in tents on Scottish land. I mean, you know, it's 3 people and a small child living outside. They have raised welfare concerns. Now, prior to this lady Asant joining the group, it's just 2 people, there was another woman who joined the group and then subsequently left, went back to America, and she passed away. So the reason I picked up on this story is because I was doing research for the show and I saw this thumbnail pop up with this person who is Ghanaian. Yeah, he's Ghanaian, and he was depicted, and it was the Sun had a headline, and he was sitting there in a chair, and he had tribal clothes on. I think he had a stick. He was chewing one of those, I think, sticks, you know, those sticks for cleaning your teeth. And the caption was "The Lying King," as in Lying. And I thought, what's going on? Had a look at the video, and then I went on TikTok. And when I went onto TikTok, I found a video from Asant, which is the other woman who's living there, because they practice polygamy. It's 3 people living on some land in Scotland, and it's him and these 2 other women. And this is what she was saying, because it's now turned into a bit of a media storm. And there's videos and things on social media about it if you look for King Kubala. So this is Asant, or as the media have nicknamed her, the handmaiden. And she's speaking, I think it's to Sky News.
Just know why I'm here. And they respect and understand my values and my beliefs. I live in a tent, so it's kind of hard to keep someone captive in a tent. I live outside. Even right now, we're standing in the middle of the road. If I wanted to run away, I would have been gone. This is not a cult. I'm not here to argue or debate or to even prove the qualifications of a cult. Or all we do is worship the Creator. They don't like nature, and a lot of people are just racist. They don't like Black people. So again, other people's concerns don't really matter to me, because these aren't people who care about me, and these aren't people that I care about. The only opinions that matter to me are the family that I have here, the trees, the birds, the creepy crawlies. That's who I'm concerned about, and that's who I know is concerned for me.
Asna, what about your baby? You talk about family, you came here with a baby. You're not concerned about your baby's welfare?
People ask questions about the children of Kubala all the time. That's not really my story to tell. Any child of mine that I give birth to is a child of the Queen's. And any child of hers is also obviously kind of like my second child. I'm like their second mother. So it's a great mystery of who gives birth to the children around here, because we are obviously practice polygamy. So in our marriage, we all bear children for the Queen. So again, that's just not my story to tell about the children. If you want to know the stories about the children, feel free to ask the King.
There's a little bit more to that video, because what the person who is trying to get some information from Asant was asking her is why she came and why she brought her child to this place to live there. And he's raising welfare concerns in and around the safety of the young child who's living at the camp with her, because she's got a young child there. And I doubt that that's a legitimate concern. I'm not saying it's not a legitimate concern. Obviously, it's cold out there. You're living out in a tent. Is that the best place for a child of that nature? Probably not. But the question then for me is not putting that to one side. If we can just focus on the issue of why are they there? And is it a legitimate thing for them to be saying, we want to take this land back because it belonged to people that you took it from? And none of that is being considered in and around this story, which I thought was interesting and also predictable. Even the framing of the conversation as calling the person the lying king as opposed to the Lion King is a colonial and racist trope. Because look, you're dehumanizing him. You're making reference to him in him versus an animal in a headline. And that to me just speaks to the wider question of how the questions of, let's say, irrespective of what the person is, I mean, you can go and look at his background and take all that into consideration. But the fact that they have gone there to reclaim the land, there is no question about that. And that's the important thing. There's no question whether or not it's a legitimate claim, because the whole thing just has to be caricatured within the context of this person. He is not a legitimate person. He's got problems. He had a number of failed businesses. What they're doing, as far as the authorities are concerned, is, well, it's just madness. But really and truly, is it madness? If you think about land reclaiming policies like you have in South Africa, for argument's sake, that's about reclaiming the land, isn't it? It's a similar question of Indigenous people taking their land back from people who took it before. It's not the same with this, of course it's not, but it's about a principle of taking things back from those who stole it in the first place. And this guy nothing I've seen even goes to address that question. Instead, it's about showing him and his wife and the lifestyle that they've chosen to live outside in a tent to be cranks. So much of the coverage is about that, that trope of what we are as a country and what we recognize as royalty as being civilized, and anything else that doesn't meet that standard, they are a savage. And that's the sort of trope that you had, because one of the ways in which they were describing him was that he was a king with rags and a crown of sticks, and that he was a failed businessman in the past, and that his idea of being a king in that space, in the way he was doing it, was basically not normal, completely inferior and totally inauthentic. Quite a lot of the coverage for me about this thing was not just about dismissing the legitimate question and asking the legitimate questions about land reclamation, basically taking it back and giving it back to the people who actually got it. It was also to do with kind of pathologizing his idea of spirituality and cultural identity, because everything he said, because I think he said he was a messiah and he was from King David, they tried to describe it and say that he was self-styled and so-called in so many of the conversations. And that to me was just delegitimizing the question about whether or not the land truly did belong to someone else other than the person who held title to that land. Because let's not forget how those, holding title to land, the land was not always owned by the establishment. No, they had to organize it so that they could hold it and fence it off and keep it. And he's saying, well, before that, there were other people who owned it, and I'd like to be considered. But he can't be considered because the papers and the whole conversation is about delegitimizing the question around, reclaiming land, rightfully held land by Indigenous people. All the language around the conversation was about mocking the idea. It was sensationalist. And it never really had any context outside of the claim had to be discredited. They need to be discredited. And okay, it's three people, but many movements start with just two people or one person or an idea. And that had to be dismissed with the conversation. And I've seen so many videos now where people are saying, these individuals, they failed based on society's norms and standards. So therefore they can't even be considered what's being said, what they're now saying. I think also they're having lots of lives and they're engaging people. So this is to me where the media interest has come. They're using an online presence to talk to a wider group of people outside of just who I say the legacy and mainstream media are talking to. And my question is, can you imagine if the idea of taking up sites on what's called titled land and basically occupying the land, that's actually a political movement, occupying the land. How do you think that would go down if more than one set of people decided they wanted to do it? And this is the reason why I think it has to be treated in the way it's treated. It had to be dismissed. He had to be mocked, and they needed to be discredited. And it now needs to be turned into a circus. I think people were making reference to it as a cult. So I don't know. Have you heard anything about the Kingdom of Kubala? I mean, is this the first you're hearing about it? And what's your thoughts about it? What's your thoughts about the Kingdom of Kubala in relation to the question of land reclamation? What's your thoughts about it? And could you see a situation where more people would effectively try and do a similar thing? Give me your thoughts. Give me your ideas. Give me your declining dollar price and let me know what you think. I hope you enjoyed that. It's an interesting story, and I think it's just going to keep murmuring on, but I don't think it's done and dusted. I really don't. Give me your thoughts and jump up all in the comments. Do not forget, God, I've just had a bit of a sneezing fit. Don't forget to make a donation at deniseheadley.com. And yes, I have got a cold. I've got an ear infection. So this week's doing the show has been a bit on the rough side. So bear with me, okay? But bring back your listening ears. Let's block the mine, I hope. Next week, and don't forget, deniseheadley.com. That's for donations on the website at deniseheadley.com for donations on the YouTube. That's it. Cut. Ta. Thank you.